So very good evening, everyone, and fantastic to have you all here. And this is my third presentation with the Matri School, and I would say this is the trickiest one. So Rohit and I have been discussing on what I should be talking about, and together we decided that, or I would say rather, Rohit decided that I should be talking about how to build a perfect business model. And so what I've done is very quickly I've put together a presentation. So there are few slides that you will see going forward from here, where I'm trying to help you as first-time entrepreneurs or people who are wanting to start up. The idea is that I want to help you in deciding how to come up with a model which is perfect, or I would say near perfect. And this is all basis my own experience of building a couple of startups in the past. Very briefly, my name is Arunabh Sinha, and I believe that a few of you might have attended a couple of other lectures that I took for Matri School in the last couple of months. But very quickly, I run this startup called UClean, and UClean is today India's largest laundry company. So what we do is we work on the franchise model, and we set up small laundry stores by the name of UClean. And then these laundry stores offer services like wash and iron, wash and fold, ironing and dry cleaning services to customers that are located, say, within 2 to 3 kilometers of a particular store. So as of today, we are present in about 55 cities of India, and we have close to 200 operational outlets, which have all come up in the last 3.5 years since UClean started. We have also made our first international foray with launching our first outlet in Kathmandu in Nepal. We also have another brand called ChemDry, which is an American company and the world's largest surface cleaning company. So there we basically specialize in cleaning services other than laundry. So like carpet cleaning, sofa cleaning, full home deep cleaning, and these are the kind of cleaning services we offer. And there also we are building the brand through the franchising route. Prior to this, in the past, I have built and sold one company called Frank Global, which was basically a market entry specialist. So we used to help international brands enter into India, and we also helped Indian brands expand internationally. So I exited that company. I ran another hotel chain called Tribo Hotels for almost 15 months before starting UK. So all the ideas and all the information that I'm going to be presenting over the next 30-35 minutes, these are based on my own learnings and also based on my interactions with fellow entrepreneurs, my interactions with people I admire, people who have built enterprises. And I really hope that some of you might find this insightful and maybe potentially implement it while you are building your own startups. So this is the overall flow as we go on to the next few slides. The first thing that I would like to talk about is the entire process. So when you talk to me or when you talk to any entrepreneur, especially people who have been running businesses for quite some time, if you ask them this question, that how do you arrive at the perfect business model, or what is a perfect business model for that matter, most of them will tell you that there is no perfect business model that exists. And I would fully agree with that. Because when you're building a business, when you're trying to develop an enterprise, when you're starting up, and as you keep on evolving, you would very quickly realize that there is nothing called a perfect formula. There is no perfect business model that anyone can talk about. The reason being that whatever you deem perfect today would change with time. So when we started UClean, and it's a very interesting and at the same time a funny story, that when we started UClean, the name itself meant you clean. So we expected that you, as a customer, would come down to a laundry store and clean the clothes on your own. Something that is very, very popular in the United States, very popular in Europe, also popular in some parts of Southeast Asia. When you go to these countries, you will see that people generally, when it comes to laundry, they would step out of their home and then they would come to these very large laundry stores, which are popularly known as laundromats. You will come there, you will insert a coin or you will insert a card, the machine will open up, you will put your clothes inside the washer. The washing process will then continue. Then the drying happens. You wash your clothes, dry your clothes, and take them back home. While you are there, you will end up watching a movie on your phone or you will read a book. So when we started UClean, we also thought that people would be willing to come down and wash their clothes in the laundromat. And that is why we thought that UClean is a very intelligent name, a very clever name. But within the first 2 or 3 months of operations, we realized that India by nature is a very lazy country in the sense that we are a laid back country. We do not like the idea of stepping out to get our laundry done. If I have to get my laundry done, I will either do it at my home or I will outsource it to a dhobi or to a laundry player who will arrange a pickup and drop from my home. I don't want to go to the laundry store and waste my time over there doing my laundry. So the moment we realize this, we realize that in India, because manpower is cheap, it is very easy to hire delivery boys and get them to do the job of pick up and drop. So that's when within 3 or 4 months of starting UClean, we pivoted to a model where UClean also offers pick up and drop to the time crunched or to the lazy customer. So if you look at our statistics today, almost 95% of our business is based on pick up and drop, and only 5% of it is laundry alone. So the business model changes, and there is no perfect formula. Even today, if you talk about what is happening at UClean, and especially with the impact of COVID-19, we have been making a lot of changes to our business model. And every time we do an iteration, every time we make a change, we realize that it is not perfect. A new feedback comes from the customer, or a new feedback comes from the team member, which tells us that we need to do more iterations, we need to do more changes. So I would like to debunk this myth that there cannot be a perfect business model. There can never be a perfect business model. A business model can only iterate, and you can achieve what I call near perfection. Now look at these examples. There is a mix. On the left side, you are seeing examples of iconic international brands. Majority of them American brands. On the right side, you are seeing iconic Indian brands. Brands that have created a huge niche in the market. Brands that are recognized as market leaders. That are very difficult to beat them at their game. But do you really think that any of them has a perfect business model? The reason why I'm highlighting Kodak and Nokia is that these are brands that used to be iconic. Nobody ever thought that anybody could build a better camera than Kodak. But then what happened? You all of a sudden you had mobile phones coming in. The mobile phones started improvising on their camera quality. And today, when you look at the latest model of an iPhone or a latest model of a Samsung, you would realize that their lenses and their quality of pictures is better than your typical Kodak camera. Kodak was a very resistant company. When the mobile phones started coming in, a lot of people advised Kodak that mobile phones would eventually take over the market that is held by Kodak. But they did not agree to it. They felt that cameras would always be better than mobile phone cameras and their market share would never get eroded. Unfortunately, it did. So the market capitalization of Kodak or the turnover of Kodak today is not even 10% of what it was 10 years ago. So this is one example where a brand was very resistant. A brand felt that they had the perfect business model and nobody can beat them at their game. And today they don't even have 10% of their turnover as compared to what they had about 10 years back. Same goes for Nokia. Nokia used to think that nobody can build better Android phones than them. And then what happened? You had the Samsungs, you had the LGs, you had the Xiaomi's, all of them came in and they beat Nokia at their own game. Apple is still there, but Apple is facing a lot of competition. McDonald's at one point in time, and it continues to be still the number one burger brand, but their market share has been eroded very rapidly by another brand called Burger King. Burger King introduced their Whopper burgers, which ate a significant share of the McDonald's pie. So the idea behind presenting these business models is to help you understand that regardless of what anyone says, there can never be a perfect business model. You need to keep working on iterations. You need to be really open. You need to have your eyes and ears open to hear the market feedback, to understand what the market is telling you, understand what the customer is telling you, and keep changing, making changes accordingly. You need to be agile, you need to be active. On the right side, when you look at these brands, there are Amul, there is Haldirams, there is Paytm. Now, these are all massive Indian brands. They have created their own niche, they have created their own standing, and they're continuously improvising. If you look at what Paytm was about 10 years back and what it is today, it would be very difficult for you to recognize it as the same brand. Same goes for Haldiram's. Thumbs Up is an amazing story. They created a soft drink brand which became super popular. People used to swear by Thumbs Up. Coca-Cola came in, and Thumbs Up realized that it would be very difficult to beat Coca-Cola at their own game, so they got acquired. But what happened after that? The Thumbs Up entrepreneurs, they were not willing to just sit down and relax, so they created a second category, which is mineral water, and they launched Bisleri. Today, mineral water is synonymous with Bisleri. Wherever you go, a lot of people, instead of using mineral water or packaged water, they call for Bisleri. Bhaiya ek Bisleri de do. So this is how business models keep evolving, and this is how you need to keep thinking about them. You need to keep iterating. You need to keep listening to what the market is trying to help you understand. Now, this is when you're working on developing the so-called near perfect model. The most important thing to understand is that there is a lot that goes behind creating a brand. There is a lot that goes behind creating a perfect business model or a near perfect business model. But the most important element is the story. People always buy a product or people always buy a service basis the story that is there in the background. So make sure that your story is worth telling. Make sure that the story is compelling. So every near perfect business model will have a story. Who are you? What's your story? Why did you create a certain business model, or why did you create a certain product? Was there a need gap that you're addressing? How did you identify it, and how are you addressing it now? So it is very, very important that when you're building a business model, you have to be cognizant of a few things. First, never build a startup just for the sake of building a startup. If you're building a startup, there should be a very strong, compelling reason for it. There should be a very strong demand for that particular product or that service in the market. It doesn't matter that if there are existing brands that are already servicing that market, you need to identify that there is still a need gap that you need to address. So, very simple example, coming back to the McDonald's story, McDonald's had created an iconic brand, and McDonald's still has a very iconic brand. But then Burger King realized that there are some very interesting burger combinations that McDonald's does not have, like the Whopper burger. So the entire story of Burger King came from that Whopper burger, and then they started diversifying into more burger-led products. So this is very important to understand that the market has to be there. You cannot create a product or you cannot create a service without the need for a market. The second is that if the market is there and there are players that are already operating in the market, try and understand what is the need gap. Is there a significant need gap that exists that only you can address? Then get into that market. I will again take you back to my UClean story. So outsourcing laundry or washing laundry not at home is not something that we created. This has existed since generations. The dhobis have been doing your laundry, and they have been doing your laundry since ages. But what we realized was that when it comes to the dhobi, the biggest challenge with the process is that there is no transparency. So when the dhobi comes to your place, he picks up the clothes, he takes them to wherever he has to process it, he cleans it there and then delivers it back to you after a couple of days or 4 or 5 days or whatever. Now the problem with the entire process is that as a customer, you have zero visibility into the entire process. So you do not know where the clothes are getting washed. Are they getting washed on the dhobi ghat? Are they getting washed by the riverside? Are they getting washed in the washroom of the dhobi? You have absolutely no visibility. You have no idea what kind of chemicals are being used, what kind of detergents are being used, and overall how the clothes are being handled. We realized that the customer did not like this. He was not happy with the way the entire process was working, but because he did not have any other options, he was compelled to keep outsourcing his laundry to the dhobi. With UClean, we changed the game. We started setting up very small but beautiful laundry stores across all neighborhoods. Laundry by nature is a very hyper local business. So in a laundry business, your typical customer is someone that is living very close to where your store is. So we started creating these hyper local stores in the neighborhood markets where a customer at any point in time could come and see the entire process. He could see the machines, he could see the chemicals, he could see the detergent, the water, and in fact how the overall process works. So this started giving him the confidence. The price points were very similar to what the Dhobi was offering, and as a result of which, we were able to migrate customers from the Dhobi to UP. So we understood the need gap. The need gap was the lack of transparency. Customers wanted to see what is happening. And very interestingly, if you look at what has happened in the last 6, 7 months with the strong impact of COVID-19, customers are even more conscious about hygiene. They are more conscious about the entire process. They want to understand if the clothes are being kept in the proper manner, if they're getting washed with the right kind of chemicals and sanitizers, if they're getting washed in a clean and hygienic setting or not. So we have, in fact, while majority of the businesses have suffered because of COVID-19, whether it is restaurants, preschools, uh, apparel stores, gyms, etc., laundry, on the other hand, especially with UClean, we have been a big beneficiary. Customers that about 6 months back were not willing to outsource it to UClean are now suddenly wanting to outsource it to UClean because they want the assurance around hygiene, they want the assurance around cleaning. So you have to figure out what is the need gap and make sure that your product or your service is addressing that need gap. Now, when it comes to a business model, and you can talk to a lot of other entrepreneurs, you can talk to subject matter experts, you can talk to the gurus, and you would see that everybody has a different version of a perfect business model. For me, I think any perfect or near perfect business model can be judged basis 4 factors. The first, and I would always say this is the most important factor, is customers. So, do you have a customer base? Is that customer base loyal? Is that customer base growing? How happy are your customers? So, whenever you want to look at a successful business, and you could choose any of the businesses to look at, something as simple as L'Oreal. If you look at L'Oreal and if you look at the feedback of L'Oreal, majority of the customers are women, and the feedback regarding their lotions, their nail polishes, their hair dryers, etc., is absolutely perfect. L'Oreal does a very extensive customer feedback program. When when you enter into a shopping mall, when you go to a L'Oreal store, you will see that they always ask for customer feedback. They allow them to try on a nail polish. They allow them to try on an eye shade, and they always keep garnering feedback. For them, it is very important to understand whether the customer is liking that particular product or not. And that is why L'Oreal is where it is today. Or look at any other brand. Look at a simple brand like Alan Solly or a Van Heusen, for example. These are all Indian brands developed by Arvind Mills. But they make sure that whenever a customer walks into an Alan Solly store or when a customer walks into a Van Heusen store, they always make it a point to take a feedback. These feedbacks are very important. So the most important thing is to understand how your customer reacts to your brand, to your service, to your product. The second is also to understand the market. And I'll give you a very, very interesting but a very relevant example. Till about 5 years back, 7 years back, there was this product called frozen yogurt, which had become very popular. Go to any tier 1 city, go to any mall, go to any high street, you will see that there were a lot of these frozen yogurt stores like Yoga Berry, there was a Yogo Box, and there were so many different brands of frozen yogurt that were coming up. And literally every neighborhood, every nook and corner, every mall across tier 1 and tier 2 cities had one version of this store or the other. But eventually the concept itself started dying down. It's not just the brand. So a lot of brands that started mushrooming, and I don't recall the names, but there are at least 10 different brands operating across the top 10 tier 1 cities of India. And everybody was making a huge business. They were franchising, they were producing products like anything. But very soon, people started disliking it. It soon became from craze, it came down to a fad. So people started discontinuing eating frozen yogurt. So the market itself shrank. It is not just that one brand performed poorly, but the overall demand for frozen yogurt, and not only in India, Frozen yogurt had become a global phenomenon across the US, Europe, Southeast Asia, Africa, and all of a sudden there was a global hit. People started realizing that this is just a yogurt with some flavors in it. People started making it at their homes, and all of a sudden the market shrank. So literally every brand suffered, whether it is Red Mango, whether it is Yogo Berry, whether it is Yogurt Berry, and whether there's a Munchies. There are so many brands, and everybody went down the drain. So you have to be very careful. You need to keep analyzing how the market is doing. You need to keep innovating. Third thing, and this is very relevant. So to create a perfect business model, it should make money. As simple as that. So if you have a product or if you have a service, better make sure that it is generating money for you. Not only the top line, but also the bottom line. By top line, I mean the sale. By bottom line, I mean the profits. So you should have sales, and the sales figure should keep growing month on month, quarter on quarter, year on year, and so should the profitability. There is no point in growing revenue and having losses. So make sure that if you want to create or want to achieve perfection, your business model is financially very sound. And the fourth factor, and this I've seen that a lot of startups tend to ignore this, but I feel that uh, building a startup or building a business is always a journey. And it is very important to have your tribe. It is very important to make sure that the people who joined you initially, they stick around. They stay with you, they are there with you through the thick and thin. And this is how you define the power of a business model. People are never committed to people. People are always committed to the business. If your starting team still feels that the business has need, it means that the business is going in the right direction. So while we have talked about what are the four key features basis which you can judge a business model, the second is what I call the SEND framework for starting up. And this does not guarantee you a perfect business model, but this is something that you need to have in place if you're looking to start up. So the first thing obviously is capital. And any startup, regardless of how small, how hyper local, or how large, initially will demand money. It will sunk your money. It will keep demanding money initially. So make sure that you have access to that capital. Whether it is your own money that you're investing, or whether you're raising money from friends, family, or wherever, you need to make sure that you have some money for the long haul. Second is energy. And I think this is more vital than even money. So many startups, and literally, I have lost count of so many startups in the past that have failed because the founders or the founding team ended up losing energy. Startups are not easy. While it is always very fascinating to go on LinkedIn or go on Facebook and write that I am the founder of a startup or I'm co-founder of a startup, the charm is good, the glamour is good, but at the same time, you have to understand that starting a startup is easy, but sustaining that startup over a longer period of time is very, very difficult. It can be personally very draining. It can be emotionally very taxing. It can be difficult for your family members too. So make sure that you have every ounce of energy and make sure that you're using every ounce of energy possible to remain excited, to remain motivated. Otherwise, it's very easy to lose motivation and exit that startup. Network is very important. Important to have a mentor, important to have a network of vendors, a network of friends and families, a network of other startups that you can reach out to, and time. A startup demands undivided attention. So you need to make sure that your family is prepared for it. You need to make sure that your personal time and me time is prepared for it, because very often you will hardly have any me time left. You will start your day maybe at 5 in the morning, and you would realize that you're working till 12 in the night. There is hardly any me time left, especially in the starting time. So make sure that you're able to have access to capital. Make sure that you have enough energy, abundance of energy. Make sure that you have abundance of time for the business. And very importantly, you have the right network that can help you grow and sustain your business. Now, this is a self assessment test, which I believe is very important for anyone. When you're looking to start up, when you're looking to build a business, which is going to tend towards perfection, make sure that you are motivated and always give this self-assessment test. These are the 5 factors which are going to be very critical to decide how long your startup will survive. One is self-motivation. Are you motivated enough? Can you wake yourself up every day asking yourself to go and run your startup? Do you have the risk-taking appetite? Can you manage people? This is very important. You don't only need to manage your team, you also need to manage your customers, manage your vendors, and sometimes this management is not easy. The customer would not be happy because you did not wash their clothes properly. The customer might not like the burger you serve them. He might get abusive. How will you handle it? Are you prepared to let your self ego go? Are you prepared to handle the customer, be polite to him, regardless of how rude he is? If you're not prepared for that, then don't consider getting into a startup. Very importantly, you need to have communication skills because you need to convince people. You need to convince your investor. You need to convince your team member to join you on a zero salary. You need to convince your first customer to buy your product or buy a service and actually pay you for it. You need to convince your family members to invest in your business, or you need to convince your family members to be by your side. So there's a lot of communication skills that is required. And communication skill does not necessarily mean English skills. You need to be able to convince people, whether it is Hindi that you're using or whether you're using a regional language. Make sure that you have clarity of thoughts and you have enough conviction yourself to be able to convince someone else to work with you. Investment appetite, like I said before, any business initially will demand money, it will drain a lot of money. Make sure you either have access to that capital on your own or you have the ability to raise capital. Whether it is from a friend or a family or an investor, you should have that capability, you should have that knack or charm to raise money from them. And until and unless you score very high on all these 5 parameters, do not consider getting into a startup. If you're scoring low or if you're scoring average on any of these parameters, please do not get into a startup. So this should be treated as your initial startup kit. Look at these 5 factors very closely, evaluate yourself. And until and unless you're scoring very high on all these 5 factors, the journey of startup could be very difficult. So make sure that this is a test that only you can administer to yourself. I cannot administer it to you. No one can administer it to you. You have to go through these factors, evaluate yourself, and then take a call accordingly. Now that you've decided that you really want to take the plunge, you really want to be a startup owner and operator, then this is the overall roadmap. And while this overall roadmap will only help your brand grow and evolve, it will always take you to perfection, but you will never reach there. The day you believe that you have created a perfect model, I would say the days that should be the last day of your business. You should either be exiting the business, you should be taking a retirement from the business, but I very honestly feel that you have no job staying in that particular startup. The day you feel that I have created a fantastic model, it is an absolutely perfect business model and nobody can create a business model better than this, you have lost that day. So you don't have any business being in that startup any further. Make sure you're exiting that startup. Make sure you're handing it to someone else who still feels that there is a lot of scope for innovation. But this would take you to where I would say you would start tending towards perfection, but you would never get there. So the idea is that always prepare properly. Like I've talked before, need to make sure that you are creating the right product, you're understanding your market, creating your product or service accordingly, even before you have launched it. Make sure that you have done your groundwork. You will have to spend a lot of your time, energy, and efforts in understanding the market, understanding the need gap, understanding the demand, even before you work on the proof of concept. Proof of concept is where you start the idea on a small scale. So as an example, when we started UClean, the proof of concept was when we started our first outlet in an area called Shishant Lok in Gurgaon. That was our proof of concept store. It was an existing laundry company and we convinced them to hand over their outlet to us and we would give them something on a month-on-month basis. So once we used that proof of concept, we started getting customers, we started getting good feedback from the customers. Only then we realized that now we can scale it up. So important to have a proof of concept, refine the proof of concept. You would see a lot of business models that generally did not start off on that mode. So simple thing is Cars 24. If you look at the Cars 24 model, initially they were focused on providing service to cars, but gradually they realized that there is a fantastic second-hand car sale model in India, and they immediately pivoted to it. Today, second-hand car sale is their biggest business. Almost 95% of their revenue comes from it. So it is very important to understand what the market is telling you and keep innovating accordingly. Once this is all done, then you need to start working on optimization. Optimization is when you start focusing on business economics. Do you need this many manpower? Do you need this big an office? Do you need to expand your office, or do you need more marketing people? Do you need more operations people? So this is where your Excel and your analytical skills will come into play. And this is the most important part before you take the leap. You need to understand what works financially for your business. Does your business do better with digital marketing, or does your business do better with retail marketing, which is your below the level marketing? So these are some elements that you need to figure out while you're running your business. And it is very important that you're able to figure out all these important factors at a unit level before you start to expand. Once this is sorted, nobody can stop you from taking the giant leap and scaling on a pan-India basis or even globally. So this is the roadmap that typically any startup should take. And this roadmap should take you to where your perfection lies, while it will never get you there. Now, just one final slide, and this is very important to understand since a lot of you are looking to get into a startup mode, or some of you are also running your startups. It is never easy. So if you look at these numbers, almost 90% of the startups, and this is India specific, close down within the first 5 years. And the issues could be manifold. The worst is what I've been talking about. So almost 42% of these startups in India that close down within the first 5 years close down because there is no market. I'll give you a simple example. There is a mall called DLF Emporio in Delhi, and this mall only has luxury brands. So when you go into a DLF Emporio, you will see that there is Prada, there is Gucci, there is Ferragamo, there is Tom Ford, there is Paul Smith, and all these amazing international brands, luxury brands, which are priced very steep. But they do very well in India. So whenever you go to a Gucci store, or when you go to an Armani store in DLF Emporio or a Louis Vuitton, you will see that there are always people inside that are making some purchase or the other. And that is why these stores, despite being so expensive, have been there in the mall for almost 10 years now. But you can't imagine taking these brands to, say, a Guwahati. You can't imagine taking these brands to a Patna or a Jamshedpur or a Belgaum or a Gandhinagar or a Baroda or a Goa. You can't do that because while there will always be customers that would be present in these markets also, but there would not be enough. So Goa can very profitably sustain an Alan Sawyer or Van Heusen. Uh, Peter England would do very well in a Kanyakumari. Peter England would do very well in a Srinagar. But when you start taking brands like Prada and Gucci, which are very steeply priced, these would not work in these markets. So not one shoe fits all. So that is the reason why so many brands fail, because they're not able to address the right market. And the second biggest reason is people run out of cash. And this is something that has happened a lot during the COVID-19 times. A lot of startups, almost 50% of the startups in Delhi, NCR, Bangalore, and Mumbai have folded up because they did not have enough cash to survive the COVID-19 period. And this is not easy. There's no solution to it. Nobody could have foreseen that a COVID-19 like situation would suddenly strike us all. So this is a very difficult scenario, but there are reasons why startups tend to close up, because they have not properly planned their finances. Wrong hiring, losing to competition, pricing issues are also some other significant factors that lead to the closure of a startup. The number of startups that become unicorn, and you can actually count them on fingers. So the Baijus, the Paytms, the Oyos, and the Olas of the world, these are very few startups that have actually attained the unicorn status. Very recently, an academy became a unicorn. So when you're starting up, it is important to always have your eyes on the sun, on the stars, eye on the moon, and by which I mean that the idea should always to become a unicorn and maybe become $100 billion company. But that is not the end game, and that is not the end of it. Even if you're not becoming a unicorn, even if you're not becoming a $100 billion company, it is important to understand that at the end of the day, if you're able to run a business sustainably, if you're able to run a business profitably, if you're keeping your customers delighted, if your team members are sticking around with the organization, if your vendors, your supply chain people, they're all happy with the company and you have a very good repeat rate of customers, you have a business model that is working very well for you and you have a business model that is near perfect. But never ever give up the search for the perfect business model. It's an iterative process. You will have to keep relooking at your business model every 3 months. You will have to keep innovating. You will have to listen to the voice of the customer. You will have to listen to the voice of the market and make changes. So that's it from my side. It has been a fantastic having you guys over here. And in case any of you has any questions, I can take it up right now. So the first question is, how do you estimate the capital requirements? So the answer to this is, whenever you are building a business, there are always going to be multiple parts to that business. So if I break it down very simply, today, because majority of the startups have a technology element. So one would be understanding what is your tech requirement, and second is understanding what is the kind of team that you need to build a particular business. So what I always recommend is that uh, whatever you're doing, make sure that you're working out an Excel sheet, and on that Excel sheet, try to figure out what. First assumption, go by the fact that always look at a pessimistic scenario. So always think that you would not be able to attract customers for the first 3-4 months, or the first 3-4 months would be spent on developing your product or service before you go to market. So any business, regardless of how amazing the business idea is, always requires three months of at least 3 months of working. So make sure that the first 3 months you are counting zero revenues. You're only going to be spending money which could be on the team, which could be on the technology, which could be on the supply chain. Figure out what are the expenses that you're going to have in the first 3 months. And then thereafter, once you go to a launch stage, always take a very pessimistic scenario, because customers always take a lot of time to react. It also requires you to spend a lot of marketing dollars. So always work out a quarterly plan. So where the first quarter should be on developing and perfecting your product, the second quarter should be on what I call the go-to market or the launch stage. So again, this would entail a lot of marketing investment. This would also entail a lot of business development expenses. Then the next quarter should be on sampling, testing, garnering feedback of the customers. And the final quarter should be on refining your product or service basis the initial feedback that you're receiving from the customer. These 12 to 18 to 24 months, always look at a very pessimistic scenario, that regardless of how amazing your product is, the response of the customers would be poor or very minimal, and you would end up spending money out of your pocket or from wherever you have raised money. So this is going to be your initial capital requirement, initial monetary requirement. I can help you guys if you're working on something. If you need to bounce ideas with me, I could help you estimate the initial capital requirement, but very broad. So one question is about the top line and bottom line. So I'm sorry, let me simplify it. By top line, I mean the revenues. So as an example, if you have a product and if you're selling the product in the market, uh, what is the money that you're making? Very simple example, say you create a sneakers company and you're selling sneakers or sports shoes to customers, and say each sports shoes costs you, you're selling, you just have one pair of sports shoes that you're selling, and you're selling it at a price of say 100 rupees per sports shoes. So in a month, if you sell say 10 sports shoes, then your top line or revenue is 1,000 rupees. By bottom line, I mean profitability. So say in manufacturing each sports shoe, you spend about 50 rupees of raw material. You are paying salary of 40 rupees, and your other costs are 5 rupees. So 95 is your cost, 100 is your profit, is your selling point, 5 rupees is your profitability. So 5 into 100 pairs of shoes that you're selling, so 500 is your profitability or bottom line for that particular month. So the next question, and uh, it's a question related to how we are coping with the COVID-19 situation. So honestly, it's not an easy time for us also, and we were not at all prepared for something as unprecedented as what we are facing today, like many other startups. So the first thing that we did was obviously we cut down salaries. Um, Fortunately for us, we had done some financial planning slightly better. So we did not lay off a single person, but we did salary cutting. So instead of giving everybody full salary and then terminating 10 team members, what we did was we made sure that all the team members are retained in the system, but their salaries are reduced by 30, 40, 50%. Very luckily for us, and this is what I keep talking about, is that the team has been very cooperative. So we have been able to build a culture where the team members also understand that we are in the startup phase and times are demanding not just for them as team members, but also for us as the company. So fortunately, we were able to cut down costs through that. We reduced the size of the office by almost 30%. So the rentals almost came down by 40 to 50%. And this helped us tide over the lockdown period when none of our stores were allowed to open. Post-COVID, things have actually, but post the lockdown, things have started improving. And like I mentioned before, a lot of customers that used to give their clothes to the local hobby, they're all now migrating to Uclean because they want to be assured of hygiene. They want to be assured of sanitization. So, in fact, the last couple of months since the unlock process has been initiated, things have started looking better and things have started improving. So starting phase of Uclean is a very interesting story, and when we started Uclean, honestly, I resigned from my previous job where I was heading a hotel chain called Tribo Hotels, and I just resigned Tribo one day to start Uclean the next day. Initial since there was very minimum capital that I had at my disposal. So what I did was I started looking out for investors who could invest in the first Uclean store and also invest the money as well as working capital. I would have met almost 60, 70 investors, tried to pitch the idea to them, tried to get them on board. Uh, the response was interesting. So everybody thought that the idea is fantastic. Everybody thought that the business is doing very well globally, so why not in India? But nobody wanted to take the leap of faith. So they were always saying that we would love to work with you, we would love to invest in Uclean, but only once you have few stores running. So after almost 60, 70 rejections, I would say a eureka moment. So I thought, why not reach out to existing dry cleaners? Because India did not traditionally have laundry stores, but India had a lot of dry cleaners across the country. So I decided, why not reach out to dry cleaners and try to explain to them the concept of laundry. So laundry and dry cleaning are different. Laundry is washing your clothes in water, while dry cleaning is solvent-based treatment of your clothes, and the price points are very different. So dry cleaning is generally preferred for your higher value items, typically ethnic items, high priced items, while laundry is preferred for your casuals. So I spoke to a lot of existing dry cleaners, tried to convince them that the market for dry cleaning is shrinking. Because if you look at us, we wear a lot of casuals, while our parents, like my mom, she wears sari every day. She has never worn anything except a sari. So these are typical dry clean items. The number of people wearing these ethnic items or these high priced items is decreasing. And that is why the market for dry cleaning is shrinking. I met almost 40 dry cleaners and they all rejected my idea. But finally, one dry cleaner liked the idea. And he gave me an interesting proposition that he's prepared to invest in Uclean. He will invest in all the equipment, all the capital that is required, but the operations will have to be managed by Uclean. We like the idea. So the day we signed off and he invested in the entire store, He invested in the machinery, the branding, the furniture, and the overall infrastructure. And the day the store was ready, he handed over the key to us, and we have been operating that store since then. And we give him a monthly assured return every month. Fortunately for us, that store today is one of our most profitable stores. And once that store was there, we were able to show it to other investors and convince them to invest in a UT. So the question that Mudit has is, should a founder work on all aspects of the business themselves or hire, contract more individuals to focus on specific aspects? So see, very honestly, it's a difficult question, uh, because when you have an idea, when you have that spark of genius, it is you don't have money, right? So when you have come up with a brilliant idea or an idea that you think is brilliant, you would generally not have the money to invest in that idea, and there will be a lot of things to be done. So the ideal thing to do would be to find people or convince people that you trust. So obviously, there is a very limited number of people that you can trust. They could be your school friends, they could be people that you have known for a very long, they could be your siblings or cousins. So the first thing you should do is try to bounce the idea with people that you trust and see if anybody is equally excited, equally believes in the power of that idea, and is willing to jump on board without any salary. So he becomes your co-founder. So the ideal scenario would be to be able to find these co-founders who are uh, convinced about the idea, equally convinced about the proposition, and are willing to join at zero salary or very minimal salary. If that is not the case, then, and if you do not have access to money, then obviously you will have to do everything on your own. But if you have the access to capital, or if you have these founders, then it is always good to have a few more people along with you that you call your tribe or your founding team, and divide responsibilities between yourselves. How to find investors for the startup? See, very honestly, again, this is not something where there is a defined formula. In our case, as an example, I explained that I had a eureka moment and I thought, why not reach out to the existing dry cleaners and try to convince them about the idea of the potential of laundry. But there are multiple ways. There is LinkedIn today, so there are people who actually today. The good thing is that with the power of internet, it is very easy for you to find out people who are actively investing. You go to Google, you go to LinkedIn, you go to Facebook, you will come across a lot of people that you will see have been actively investing. And you would also get to know which space they are interested in. So, for example, if you have an idea in the health tech space, it is not difficult today to, through smart, intelligent Google search, to figure out who are the people who are actively investing in the health tech space. Once that is done, then start reaching out to them through LinkedIn, try to figure out if their phone number is there, try to attend a lot of networking events where these health tech investors are there, try to meet them and convince them about the opportunity. The second, and I would always say the softer target is the FFF, which is the friend, family, and fools. So nobody can, no, it is always easier to convince your friend or family, or for that matter, there are these aspiring investors, which I call fools, because these people do not understand the business idea, but they also want to be called investors. So if if you're not able to reach out to the right investors through LinkedIn or through these networking events, or if they're not responsive, then ideally go to these friends, families, or fools and try to convince them about the business opportunity. Before that, you need to do your own research. You need to make sure that you fully understand the market that you're getting into. You fully understand how the business will build up and what is the kind of return that you can give to your investor. Should we also focus on our future inventions that we are planning to launch in future period, or start up in the current business model? Absolutely. So even when you're talking to a potential investor, it is he or she would always like to understand what is the future that this business holds. So if you feel that you have a business idea, and if you feel that over a period of time you could add or integrate more ideas to this existing business, make sure that you're spelling it out openly to your investor. That would only build his confidence about your idea, and that would also give him more clarity around the future roadmap. So it is very important to keep putting down your thoughts, have your dashboard ready, keep putting your thoughts on that dashboard, and always keep working towards them. Are there any further questions? How to decide repay percent of investors? Please explain in terms of money example. Mubashir wants to understand how do you repay back to the investor? And if an investor gives you 1 lakh, how do you decide over what time period should you return the money to him, and how much money should go to him on a monthly or a weekly basis? So see, very honestly, again, this is a not an easy question to answer because it would depend a lot on how you negotiate, what are the expectations that particular investor has, and how convinced he is about your idea. There are two kinds of investors. One is what I call equity investors, and the second is what I call debt investors. Equity investors are generally investors who do not want a month on month return or a quarter on quarter return or a weekly return. These are people that invest in the idea because they very strongly believe in the power of the idea. And they very strongly feel that at some point in time in future, the idea will raise a lot of money, at which point in time they will also make a lot of money. So such people, they're always more difficult to find, and it is always more difficult to convince them about a particular idea because they are literally investing their money without any assurance. But if you're able to find them, nothing like it. In that sense, we have been lucky. We have been able to find a few equity investors who believe in the power of Uclean, and they believe that at some point in time in future, Uclean would become so big that we would be able to raise a lot of sophisticated capital or private equity money, and they would be able to exit at a very high multiplier of their existing investment. But these are always more difficult to find. The easier ones to find are what I call the debt investors. So the debt investors are the ones that would give you a certain amount of investment, and then they would expect a certain payback on that. A simple formula is that, say I am investing in your company and you want to raise 1 lakh rupees from me. And I and you agree that you will repay me the entire 1 lakh rupees along with a certain interest over a period of 3 years. Now, if I decided to put that 1 lakh rupees in fixed deposit in a bank, in a period of 3 years, I would make about, say, 1.1 lakh rupees. I'll get an interest of, say, 10 to 15,000 rupees. But that is a surety. If I'm putting 1 lakh in a fixed deposit in a bank, I'm assured that after 3 years, I'll get 1 lakh 15,000 or whatever. But if I'm investing in your company and I have no idea whether you will be able to run the company for 3 years or if it will be long term sustainable or not, then I would want a bigger return on my investment. So maybe you and I will agree that if I'm investing today, you will pay me 1.5 lakh rupees over a period of 3 years. But I also want to safeguard my investment, so I will insist on a clause that you will not pay me after 3 years. You will pay me 50,000 rupees every year, or you will pay me 25,000, 12,500 rupees every quarter, or 25,000 rupees every 6 months. So honestly, there is no fixed formula. The only benchmark or thumb rule should be that any investor who is investing on a debt mode or a return mode would always want to make sure that the return that he's getting is going to be much, much higher than what he would get if he put it in a more assured instrument like a fixed deposit. How do you find if your idea is perfect for the market? So see, again, I'm telling you that the biggest advantage that today's generation, you and I, or anyone who is building an idea right now, is that we have access to a lot of information online. Anyone who started a startup about 20 years back, he had to struggle with this because information was not readily available. Today, because of internet, there is so much information that is available online that all you need to do is do a very smart and intelligent search. Do it on Google, refer to databases like KPMG, refer to databases like Deloitte, and you would be able to get a lot of idea on that particular business. Once that idea is there, which is what I call secondary research, your secondary research will give you enough confidence on whether there is power in your idea or not. Then what you should do is, and I will always very strongly recommend, is to do primary research. Primary research is where you start talking to prospective customers or your networkers, or reach out to entrepreneurs or mentors bounce this idea with them. Tell them that this is what you're looking at and what is their feedback on the same. Reach out to your friends, reach out to your family, ask them if they would buy your product or they will subscribe to your service. So a combination of secondary and primary research would help you understand if the market is sizable enough or not, and if the market will get you traction or not. How has been being an IITian helped you in your entrepreneurial journey? So honestly, I don't think that schools play a lot of role. Obviously, the network is very strong. So the IIT network that I am lucky to be a part of, it already includes a lot of investors, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of seniors that have been there and done that. So it gives you that comfort. It gives you that bouncing board that you can always reach out to them, and when they see that their junior or their classmate is reaching out to them, they're always ready to listen to your ideas. They're always ready to listen to your feedback. So I think the biggest advantage that I get as an IITian is that I have access to that IIT network or IIT Bombay network in particular, where I'm able to reach out to them, talk to them, share my ideas with them, share my concerns with them, and they're always ready to help me with a solution. They're always ready to refer me to someone they believe would be able to help me out. So in that sense, definitely being an IITian has helped me a lot. But I also feel that beyond a certain point, degrees do not matter. What really matters is your passion, your understanding, and your commitment to a given idea. It has been difficult. So a lot of people have been asking me about startups are difficult and how do I keep myself motivated. And I would say it is not easy. And especially if I talk about the last 6-7 months, these have been very, very difficult. COVID-19 has tested us in ways that I could have never anticipated. The market has been dented. The franchisees are frustrated. The franchisees are struggling. We are struggling as a brand. But I very strongly feel that the most important factor that keeps me going is one, the team that is in place, especially the core team, the founding team, the tribe that helped me start this business in the first place, and that has been around. So it's always a pleasure and a pride and an honor to work for them, to make sure that I'm able to generate enough business so that their monthly requirements are being met, their families able to survive, their families able to thrive. So that has been the biggest motivator for me. And trust me, when you're running your startup, when you have a family and your entire team is your family, when you have a family to take care of, you will always figure out ways to make sure that they are surviving, they are thriving. And I should not discount the value of my own family. So whether it is my wife, my mom, or my dad, or my young daughter, they have been there. They have always been there. There have been some very tough times. There have been some very good times. And my wife, who is also a co-founder, has been always there backing me, supporting me, and making sure that despite all the stress levels, I'm still there. I'm at my game, and I make sure that we are surviving, we are thriving, we are competing. So, Jesh, the idea that there's a question around whether if we share our idea with others, is there a possibility that somebody could steal that idea? That possibility is always there. But again, I'm coming back to the same point that today the world is so interconnected, everything is available online. So honestly, when you think about an idea, and while you might think that it's a genius idea, you have come up with a brilliant idea, trust me, someone somewhere in this world is already doing it. Think of any idea, do whatever research you want to do. If the idea has power, if the idea has market, trust me, there is someone in the world somewhere. That person could be in Croatia, that person could be in China, that person could be in Australia, he could be in Azerbaijan, he could be in Africa. Somebody's already working on that idea and executing it. So I always feel that it is not the idea that is important, it is the people behind the idea. It is the people who are going to execute that idea which is going to be the most important factor. A lot of people can borrow your idea. You can launch a product today, and there could be another company that likes your idea and also starts off a similar product. Do they have a similar commitment? Do they have a similar passion? That is the only thing that is going to matter in the longer run. So somebody has asked how to reach out to me. I'm just sharing my email ID on the chat box. You can drop me an email and reach out to me anytime. I would be more than happy to help you. Let Just whenever you're dropping an email, just let me know that you are part of the Maitri school, and I would be more than happy to help you. So the question that I have is that what are my thoughts about the Reliance monopoly? And see, very honestly, I don't think there is a right or wrong answer to the Reliance monopoly. Reliance is an iconic brand. Reliance is a brand that has been working tirelessly, endlessly, building products, building services, making a lot of profits for so many years. So it is unfair for me or for you to lecture them or dictate them on what should they be doing and what should they not be doing. Obviously, it jolts the startup system. So, as an example, if they're acquiring MediPlus in the health tech space, MediPlus gets benefited because their founders had worked very hard and now they're going to get a very good exit when Reliance acquires them, or they're going to get very good returns when Reliance acquires them. But it's also going to adversely impact all the other startups that were competing with MediPlus. They might lose the energy, they might not be able to compete with Reliance, and so a lot of other startups in the similar space would get killed. So I fully agree with that. While it is not ideal, Reliance monopolizing all the markets, acquiring startups and killing the other startups. But at the same time, in all fairness, Reliance has the resources, Reliance has the capital, and Reliance has the capability. So regardless of whether we like it or not, they can do it. So I think we are done for today. I have already shared. Okay, one more question, please. Sure, sure. Anyway, for others, I have shared my email ID in the chat box. So feel free to reach out to me for any discussions that you want. Please do mention that you're part of Maitri School so that I can respond to you and we can take the discussion forward. So the question that is there is, should India focus on $5 billion companies monopolizing the entire market, or should we have many individual startups, like thousands of startups handling their each market worth million? So again, like I said, it's very similar to the question that was asked previously around Reliance monopolizing the different markets. Uh, Whether in what India does, and India is doing it already, is when it comes to the governments, they are trying to focus on startups, they are trying to foster startups. But at the end of the day, when a startup gets acquired by someone like Reliance, it is also a startup's individual decision. So the founders of the startups, along with the investors who have invested in the startup, together feel that it is better to get acquired by a behemoth like Reliance rather than continue on their own. So I feel that at the end of the day, when we talk about India, we are talking about the government of India. And the government of India, even today, through their various missions and committees, are still trying to focus on fostering the culture of startups in India. But at the end of the day, what makes or breaks a startup is customer. So if a customer likes the products or services that Reliance is offering, and it feels that it is better than the any other startup that is offering a similar product in the similar space, then obviously the customer is going to invest or buy the particular product or service from Reliance rather than the startup. So at the end of the day, it is all up to the customer, the 1.3 billion people that we have, that are the ultimate decision makers. And whether we like it or not, the decision makers only care about two things. One is quality and the second is price. If as a startup you're able to beat Reliance on either of these parameters, then obviously you would be able to survive and we would have millions of startups focusing on their independent markets. If you're not able to do that, then obviously Reliance will continue to monopolize the market. So I don't think uh, I or you have an answer. The answer directly lies with the 1.3 billion people in India who are the ultimate decision makers. So, so Diksha, what I would do is I would share the presentation with Rohit of Maitri, and he can share the entire presentation, so you guys can go through the presentation, and I can connect with you anytime.
Thank you, Arunabh bhaiya, for connecting with us. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Nice talking to you, and look forward to staying in touch. Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
thank you, bhaiya.